So Sean Ingle of The Guardian is with us. Evening, Sean.
Good evening.
Thanks for joining us. I know you were up early this morning. There was what was going to be a highly and hotly anticipated testimony from Shane Sutton of, formerly of Team Sky and British Cycling, but that did not go ahead. What we're talking about here, Sean, is a Medical Practitioners Tribunal in Manchester. They're assessing Dr. Richard Freeman's suitability to continue to practice medicine. So we'll start with Dr. Richard Freeman, if we may. He worked for British Cycling and Team Sky between 2009 and 17. He's been accused of various things. He's actually accepted quite a few of the charges, we should say.
He has, yeah. 18 out of 22 charges, including ordering a banned Testagel product from an Oldham-based company. He's also admitted lying to UK anti-doping. He's admitted haphazard medical records and a few other things as well. However, crucially, he says he didn't order the testosterone or the Testagel to microdose a cyclist, either at British Cycling or Team Sky.
And I know actually we spoke in advance, or you spoke to a member of the team. You want to emphasise these are very legal matters at the moment, so we can't be throwing around opinion too freely in the midst of all this. And even the reason today didn't go ahead as planned was because of legal argument. But coming back to that Testagel, that testosterone, two things in particular I think have kind of stuck in people's minds and hung over British Cycling and Team Sky. There has been the Jiffy bag situation, and there's also been this batch of testosterone which pitched up in Manchester at British Cycling. So we're talking here about the testosterone, the Testagel. And Dr. Richard Freeman, over the course of these proceedings, he has, I'm right in saying, Sean, admitted to ordering them, as you say, but he denies they were for an unnamed athlete for microdosing. He says instead, and this is the new part of the news, which has kind of caught everyone's attention, that they were for Shane Sutton. People will know him as Bradley Wiggins' coach. Shane Sutton, he says, suffering from erectile dysfunction.
Absolutely. And the other thing he said, which I think is quite important, he claims that Sutton bullied him into ordering them. The pair, they had a difficult relationship, I think it's fair to say. And yeah, he claims that Freeman forced him. He's so scared of Freeman. He's been treated as someone who's vulnerable, so that when Freeman sees Sutton, he will have a screen around him that will shield him from the former Team Sky and British Cycling coach, and also from the press as well. And I think, you know, I've spoken to a few people around the case, and they do insist that he is actually absolutely petrified of his former colleague, who he worked with for several years.
Am I right in saying Dr. Richard Freeman was initially due to appear before proceedings previously, but his mental health was under duress? Yeah,
absolutely. I think it was February this year, and I was coming back and forth to Manchester, and we kept having hearings behind closed doors, and eventually it was agreed to postpone the trial and sort of kick it down the road for 9 months.
Okay.
So here we are. Freeman looks in reasonable health, but yeah, he's obviously had some problems in the past. So the tribunal is very cognizant of that. When he testifies, which he's due to do in a couple of weeks' time, he can't have more than a couple of hours at a time, and he has lots of breaks. And obviously they're protecting him with a screen when it comes to Sutton as well.
Okay, so the erectile dysfunction rationale is relatively new, and then the reason today was so hotly anticipated, I suppose, is that we were expecting Shane Sutton to give evidence and to give his side of things, and that didn't happen. But we understand he vehemently denies suffering erectile dysfunction, and certainly denies that he bullied Richard Freeman to order the Testagel for this condition, which he says he didn't have. But we never got that far today.
No, we didn't. Legal argument. There may be some more of that tomorrow morning. However, I spoke to one of the parties in the case this afternoon, who said they were hopeful that Sutton would take the stand at some point, maybe late morning. So fingers crossed, that's what happens.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of hard to know what is going on here, really, on a whole host of levels.
It is. This could go all sorts of ways. There are lots of people with things that I wonder will come out. It could end up a bit like that scene in Reservoir Dogs, where they're all, bloodied on the floor. Every one of them, shot and reputation's damaged. Or it could end up, the case could get kicked down the road again. It really is very unclear what's going to happen. However, I think Shane Sutton is going to be, going to come under heavy scrutiny when he does appear in the tribunal. Richard Freeman's lawyer, Mary O'Rourke, who is very impressive, very formidable, has already claimed on Friday that Sutton gave some evidence to Parliament that was completely inconsistent with some of the other stuff that she said was in a sworn affidavit he'd given to the Daily Mail, and she said that was going to come out, and she was going to want to question him on that. She suggested that she wants to get into Shane Sutton's bullying, and she said also that Sutton's affidavit, or claimed affidavit to the Daily Mail, contains a number of lies. So she is gunning for him, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
You mentioned there the Parliamentary Inquiry. That's separate to this. This is very much a medical practitioners tribunal, I presume. The Parliamentary Inquiry was separate. And where is that? Because that felt like it had real momentum behind it at a time, and all the big hitters were being called before it and getting, from afar, what looked like a very informed grilling. And the members of Parliament seemed to be really on top of their brief and doing their job well. Where is that, Sean?
Well, that's finished. You may remember it concluded in, I think it was March 2018, with them saying that they that what Team Sky and British Cycling done had been, some of it had been unethical. Yeah. And it was very critical of both organisations. Shane Sutton, I think, was a key witness to that inquiry. So the other thing in all this, of course, is there was also a UK anti-doping inquiry back in finished in November 2017, which had a 14-month investigation. I think had 37 witnesses. I'm told it cost £600,000 off the UK anti-doping budget, and it didn't really find anything. And that was looking into the jiffy bag. So it's hard to keep up. But essentially, British Cycling, Team Sky, essentially on trial, and some of the most significant figures in that golden period are under question. Yeah,
okay. So, and that's the parliamentary hearing made their finding. They didn't buy much of what Team Sky and British Cycling were saying to them, but that's the end of it. That's as far as it went. There was no fallout from that.
Absolutely. So, they were critical of Wiggins, they were critical of Team Sky and British Cycling, but yeah, there was no sort of legal enforcement.
Right, okay. Because I dare say we would have spoken about that when the ruling was given, or we would have covered it in the show, and already I've kind of half forgotten it, which just goes to prove a point I suspect we made on the night, which was this probably won't really register with 99% of people who aren't following the minutiae of all this, and the reputational damage won't be any extra to what it was otherwise.
Absolutely. I don't want to equate it too much to the whole Salazar and Nike thing, but that went on and on. Then it went quiet, and then suddenly it flared up again. These things don't often happen in a linear way. New witnesses come up, stuff that goes on in private suddenly flares into the public. So you just have to keep following it, keep paying attention, and we'll see what happens next, I think. No, sorry, carry on. Apologies.
And the nature of this inquiry, or this tribunal into Dr. Richard Freeman's suitability to continue to practice medicine, are we expecting that? Like that's got a narrow focus, I would presume. It's very much about Freeman. You mentioned the Reservoir Dogs analogy. Like, are you saying that in any kind of expectation that, despite the UCAT inquiry and the Parliamentary Inquiry, which were designed to kind of get the big picture stuff, is there a chance, do you think, that this Richard Freeman case might actually, be the equivalent of getting Al Capone on tax, that we might actually get something unexpected here, or what's the kind of feeling when you're at this tribunal?
Well, I think given he's accepted 18 and 22 charges against him, and there must be a fairly strong chance he'll get struck off. The question then is whether UK anti-doping will then take it upon themselves to say, okay, yeah, if he is found, the whole testosterone thing, which means admit some of it, will they then, take out an anti-doping rule violation against him? If they do, and he's banned for that as well, that will obviously affect very badly on Team Sky and British Cycling, given he was both organisations, or between that period of 2009 and 2017. So that won't be great. I guess the other thing is, will Sutton testifying lead to a wider issue? Will the way Sutton behaved come under sharper focus? Will Team Sky and British Cycling, some of their practices come under sharp focus? I think what we can say, of course, is we were sold all this marginal gain stuff. We were told that this was this organisation was the brightest and the best. No detail was left, unlooked at. No, record was left, to chance. And really on Friday we went through, Simon Francis QC from the GMC went through Freeman, and his medical record keeping was utterly shocking. Vague in anything. He would open, he'd leave his office open with corticosteroids and other stuff on his desk.
This is the guy who lost the laptop on holiday as well and didn't have a backup of files.
Lost the laptop on holiday, didn't even bother to back up his files. The things that we were sold, 8, 7, 6 years ago, when you actually drill into the nitty-gritty, it doesn't really hold up.
Yes.
To be honest.
And yet they were still incredibly successful. And that is the juxtaposition. So I suppose, I guess the reason I asked that question, though, about what we may end up with here is very clearly Dr. Richard Freeman says, I was bullied by Shane Sutton, a coach at Team Sky. It was the testosterone gel was for his erectile dysfunction and not for microdosing of an athlete, an unnamed athlete, as the GMC have suggested, the QC for the GMC have suggested. So if Shane Sutton comes forward and says, this is complete nonsense, I don't even suffer from that condition, I can produce my medical records to prove as much, for instance, and that testo gel was not for me, and I didn't bully Richard Freeman to get them or to order them. Well, then we have a situation where it's, well, hang on, what has actually gone on here again? And if, someone has to know something here. So is Freeman lying? Is Shane Sutton lying? And that's where, if you're on that tribunal and you have he said and no clear answers, that's where this thing again, I don't know, might require further witnesses. I don't know what powers it has to compel people to turn up. But, I mean, presumably, if that's what Shane Sutton, we're hearing that's what he's going to say, that's what he will say. And then where are we? The testosterone is still not explained.
Well, Mary O'Rourke, again, who's the QC acting for Freeman, she's been suggested that, or suggested from the start of last week, she was contacted by various people who knew Shane Sutton and, both pro-am riders and other people who would, testify against him or give statements against him rather. So that's one thing I think that could shed some light. Freeman is due to testify once Sutton, and then I think Steve Peters and Bill Burt are also due to testify this week, and then it'll be Freeman. So all these questions will be put to them, and we just have to sort of see where the dust settles. Okay.
Well, listen, we'll keep an eye on things, as I'm sure you will be doing for The Guardian day in, day out. Sean Ingle, Chief Sports Writer at The Guardian. Thanks so much, Sean. Appreciate it.
Thank you.